Hello everyone, my name is Kane, and today I'm going to be talking about some servers of Star Wars Galaxies Emulator. Now, there are multiple servers that you could go out and play. A few have cropped up here and there. It used to be just one, the primary team working on it, and now, after they released their server code to the public, any other person could host a server if they wanted to. I'm not familiar with how this is done. This is something you'll have to go to the main website and read up on if you want to host a server. However, I'm going to be talking about specific servers and how well they're doing and how far along they are and what they specifically bring to the table. First one I'm going to be talking about is Bloodfin EMU. Now, BloodfinEMU is hosted by a guy, his username is Heat. The server itself is incredibly stable. It has very little downtime. At first, it had a decent amount of downtime because there was something written into the actual source code that caused the server to reset every 2 hours. This is something he couldn't change at first. This is something that just had to be dealt with, and everyone kind of accepted this. Now that's fixed, don't have to worry about it. It never seems to go down. Maybe if there's like an update or a patch, but the whole process is extremely smooth. It's really nice to see. As far as what the server brings to the table as far as content as opposed to the other servers, well, it seems to be the one that has the most working. Even though the other emulator, I think it's called Basilisk, the primary one, Core 3, it's the one that started everything. But Bloodfin seems to have its act together as far as coding. It's gotten a lot of the content that every other server doesn't have right now. It has working Jedi, which I believe Basilisk just implemented. It's had it for months. Now, the Jedi wasn't working perfectly. I mean, there were still bugs here and there, and there's some balancing issues, but I mean, that's a huge leap to have Jedi for so long while every other server didn't seem to have it. And it seemed to be working really well. I mean, the AI for everything seems to be working really well as far as the mobs. The spawning of the mobs is a really complicated system, especially in code, and they seem to have it fairly down pat at this point. I mean, there's still some fine-tuning, but I mean, that's every server at this point. And they deliver on extra content that never existed as well. They even have player housing that never existed, like a house from Cloud City that's up in the sky. They implemented that when that never existed on the live server. That's really cool. It's really cool to be like, hey guys, come check out my house. Oh, look at that, it's in the sky. It's really nice to have. On top of that, there's extra content as far as like events, like city events. They send out like a server-wide, hey, this is happening in this city, like the Imperials are attacking or the Rebels are attacking, or the infamous Jawa Sith NPC. It's really silly, but at the same time, it's so much fun. I was there for a few of the first couple ones where they were asking people what they wanted to fight. Like, do you want to fight a Tusken? Do you want to fight a Sith? Do you want to fight a Jedi? Do you want to fight Darth Vader? Who cares? And then halfway through, they're like, do you guys want us to name them anything so you can work out some demons or something like that? So a lot of people recommended something like naming a John Smedley, which is one of the primary people involved in the original Star Wars Galaxies, and he took a lot of the blame for what happened, even though really I think it was George Lucas who was primarily involved and said, hey, make this game like WoW, but I digress. So as far as content is concerned, this server is packed full of it. Everything you remember is pretty much working. Deathwatch Bunker works, so if you want to go to the Deathwatch Bunker, which is a bunker full of Mandalorians, takes a shit ton of people to kill, and also has super battle droids. Not to mention it's where you could get this fabled beauty. And some Mando armor of your own if you have the 9 million hours to farm the materials required for each individual piece. You can go do that now, which on most servers, the Deathwatch Bunker is a little tricky. The NPCs aren't there on some of the servers I've seen. On others, they're there, but they're in the walls. And then on another one, they're there, they're not in the walls, but they don't drop anything, so there's no point in even being there. So content is just beautiful. The fact that Jedi is working awesome. The Jedi, but there is downsides to the fact that the content's there. The way they implemented Jedi is they wanted to make all the veterans kind of feel at home when they came onto the server, and not a lot, but I mean a decent amount of old school Star Wars Galaxies veterans were Jedi. They had a Jedi as an alternate character or their primary character. So they didn't want them to have to grind so much to get it, because it used to take, anywhere from like 3 months to, I heard some people hanging on to the grind for a year, just unable to actually get the prerequisites needed for Jedi. What they've done is it's just an XP grind of like 2 different types of XP, and you just grind through. And the way they make it faster is the server has an active times multiplier of experience going. So instead of the normal experience, it's 2 times or 4 times. And then if the server goes down for any amount of time, when it comes back up, they enable 8 times XP. So this is both good and bad. The good part is veteran players can grind up a little faster, so they don't have to feel like it's such a chore to get back to where they left off with the original game. And new players experience just super fast leveling, which is kind of fun in its own sense because it's really rewarding. However, there's huge negative to this in the fact that no one is getting comfortable with what they're playing at all, because they aren't spending much time with it. They're blazing through all the abilities, so they barely get used to their rotation or the abilities they're using before they have new abilities to add into it. And that makes it makes the problem where in World of Warcraft or Star Wars Galaxies or any MMO, if you bought a character that you didn't level, that was already maxed out, had all the gear, anyone who bought it would know that it's really difficult to figure out your character from them, because you have so many abilities, so many little nuances you're trying to figure out. And you would have a good handle on that if you leveled it from start to finish. But because of this, the 8 times XP or the 4 times XP, what have you, it's as if you had bought that character at this point. You go through it so fast that you have no idea what you're doing by the end of it. And that's a problem. The other thing is, because of this multiplier, yes, veterans are getting their Jedis back faster, but it's also allowing a ridiculous amount of people to get Jedi extremely fast. So as opposed to the old live server where I think there was, anywhere from 30 to 100 Jedi on the server out of several thousand, out of the 3,000 to 5,000 people on Bloodfin, I want to say 1,000 plus are Jedi. I would estimate even more. I would say that everyone on the server has a Jedi character, because the server allows you to have multiple characters on that server. So I would probably estimate that the majority of players on the server have one character that's their Jedi and one character that's not. So that is a full server of Jedi running around, and that's the nerd in me wants to say it's not canon, but that's not fair. It's a game. It doesn't need to be canon. However, it takes away from Jedi. It takes away from the nuance, the excitement of getting Jedi. It takes away from having your Jedi, knowing that you're part of an elite player base that earned your right to play this class that is better than every class in most respects. I mean, it's a Jedi. I mean, come on. So it causes a huge problem for the player base. Everyone sees too many Jedi running around. It's a problem. The other problem I see with Jedi is the force ranking system on the server. He had to disable it to a point, so you could get multiple ranks in it. Then that was it. So the force ranking system, what it is, it's a system where you gain a ranking experience points for defeating other Jedi and bounty hunters in combat. And as you rank up through it, you're ranking through the Jedi or the Dark Jedi ranking. So you go from Padawan to Knight to Guardian to, there's a bunch of different names for it, all the way up to Master, Dark Side or Light. And each rank enhances your force abilities in specific areas. Light side enhances mostly, I would say, lightsaber combat efficiency as well as defensive efficiency, and dark side enhances pretty much all of your offensive abilities. So your force powers that do damage and are offensive are better. Your defenses, not so much. Your lightsabers are okay, but not. It doesn't seem to be quite as good as the light side. However, he had to disable this because it wasn't balanced yet. It was broken. So a master dark side master powers. So a dark Jedi master with master powers could walk up to pretty much anybody in the game and almost two-shot you with force lightning, which is cool. I mean, you feel really cool when you walk up to someone and be like, unlimited power. But it's not fair. I mean, who wants to play a game where you can be one-shot at any moment? So that's a problem. So he turned it off. That doesn't solve the issue. It just kind of postpones it. But he was working on it, and people were getting a little bored because it also causes an imbalance when it's turned off, because certain Jedi powers that are meant to be enhanced through the Force ranking system are now not. So a good example again is lightning. Lightning without the master powers, or without even half of the ranking tree, does almost nothing. It misses constantly. Yeah, it does a lot of damage, but it misses. You'll never hit anything. So it causes an imbalance that way. He also removed the ranking experience for killing bounty hunters. This happened in the original server. This also happened when he first implemented it. It's called Fight Club. And a Fight Club is where you take a bounty hunter friend of yours and yourself, and you go to a cloning facility, which is where you respawn when you die in the game. Kill the bounty hunter. You have him have your mission. You kill him, you gain the ranking, and he doesn't lose anything because bounty hunters don't have a ranking system. He loses the money. He doesn't have to have them. He doesn't gain the money that he would from killing you. But that's another. What's the point? That's no negative for him. So you just sit there and you rank up and you rank up and you rank up, and in no time at all, you're a Jedi Master from doing nothing but killing your friend. It's an imbalance on a scale of an 8 times experience multiplier. You didn't earn any of the ranking, so you don't really know what you're doing with it once you have it. So he removed the experience gain from killing bounty hunters. But now there's no fear of bounty hunters, because that was the fear of bounty hunters. The fact that when you died, you lost experience and ranking. It was a problem. So that's a problem, but I don't know if he can fix that, because people, the moment he turns it back on, they'll be fight clubbing. There's no stopping it. I mean, he can't just sit there and watch for fight clubbing all day. He can't have his moderator sit there and watch for fight clubbing all day. It's not realistic. It would be realistic, say, if this was an actual company with a lot of employees who are moderators. Yeah, it's a realistic idea to just watch for fight clubbers. That's not a problem. You have a bunch of people on staff, but with the handful of people he has, it's just not feasible. So moving on from content, the community is actually really amazing. I do enjoy this community. There's something MMOs are missing today, and it's something a lot of people will be like, no, you don't need that. That's a bad idea. That'll just cause trouble. And what it is faction pride or faction hate. So what I mean by this is, if you're an Imperial or you're a Rebel in Star Wars Galaxies, the original game, you would feel pride in knowing that you're in the Rebellion or in the Empire, and you didn't like the other side inherently. You just didn't. It wasn't a real hate, but it was real enough to where when you saw an Imperial as a Rebel, you wanted to fight them. You wanted to talk shit. You wanted to rile them up and get a fight started. Same with the Imperials. And that's missing from a lot of games. And a lot of people would say, well, that's toxic behavior. But it's not. Everyone understands in Star Wars Galaxies that's not toxic behavior. Each side understands it's nothing personal, and they don't really hate that person. It's simply something to get player versus player in the world going, because the game doesn't have battlegrounds. They tried implementing battlegrounds really early on. It did not work. It was really silly. It's actually why I'm against battlegrounds in all MMOs for the most part, because it inherently stops any person's ambition to do world PvP, which is some of the cooler PvP you can ever have. the terrain changing all the time, the planet to planet fights, the city brawls. It's a much better experience than glass bottled battleground experience where it's limited. It's going to be the same every time. There will be no difference every time you play. That's not fun. I mean, people will do their Battlegrounds World of Warcraft all day, every day, and it'll be a grind. It'll never be, oh, I'm having fun. That's one thing that a lot of MMOs are missing, is this hate towards the other faction, the pride for your own faction. It's kind of a necessity for a community to actually, it creates bonds really quickly in your own faction. Just knowing that if someone on your faction gets in a brawl with an Imperial, you're immediately there backing him up because he's a rebel and that's an Imperial, and that Imperial needs to die. If it's red, it's dead. That's an old saying from Star Wars Galaxies, and perhaps, I don't know, communists versus Americans. I'm sure it was said then too. So the community as a whole improves from it. But this server has that. Old Star Wars Galaxies had that. This server has that. Not a lot of other servers do. I mean, it's really hard to find because a lot of servers, like the core server I made a video called, is Star Wars Galaxies PvP on the emulator dead? And on that emulator, I was positive it was dead. I still am positive it's dead. I've been on there multiple times since that video, and I almost log out every time because there's nothing to do. I mean, yeah, if you want to craft, that's fine. There's tons to do. If you want to be an entertainer, a doctor, all that's fine. All the PvE content is there. The PvP content is not, and that's what I am about, is PvP content. The community past the PvP is also really good. There's lots of armor smiths, weaponsmiths. They're always out there to help you. The entertainers are just like I remember them. They just want to hang out, have a good time. There's also an added benefit of the moderators being part of the player base as opposed to the original game. The moderators really want to help. They're really good moderators. They love the game. They want to help people. They don't want to see anyone not having a good time. So that brings me to how good the support is for moderation. I've had no trouble with the moderation in this game as far as their ability to help me when I have a problem. The few times that there has been problems on the server, like the server restarts and items have disappeared, you message one of them, there's always one on, and they will immediately help you out. They'll figure out what items you lost, they'll give them back, or if they can't give them back, they'll just give you a replacement item that's just as good or the same. You know, they're very good about it. I think one of the best examples I can give is, even though the multiplayer XP thing is on for Jedi, the prerequisites for Jedi, you still have to get a lot of badges by going and working for Jabba the Hutt for a couple hours and doing this other theme park over there for a couple hours, and then go finding these 30 badges on multiple different planets. And that takes some time. Well, I had finished that, and then a server wipe happened where it reset me back to before I finished it. Well, I went up to one of the moderators, and then 5 minutes later, Heat showed up and was like, here, take it, and gave me all of my badges back. It was perfect. Everyone I've heard, any bug that happens, it gets either fixed as quickly as possible or written down for later when it needs to be fixed. If it's really a big problem, they try and fix it right then and there. If you get stuck somewhere, it's really, they help you out. So the support is fantastic. There are some negatives to the moderation community, but this is kind of a personal opinion for me, as well as it will vary from person to person. One of the primary problems I have had with the server is, although the moderators are good, they don't know how to handle hate very well. They've had a lot of people yell at them for doing things they didn't like, and this is going to happen. This is going to happen no matter what. Players are fickle, they're bitter, they really don't know how good they have it. So they're going to yell and kick and scream. Well, Heat and a few of the moderators didn't know how to handle it quite so much, or they might have known how to handle it in a small amount, but when they got it every day for a little while from a few different sources, it got really personal between a few of them. So when they took it personally, they acted as such, and they ended up banning a bunch of people, which I agreed with. Banning people who cause trouble like that or are that insensitive and take it to a personal level, they need to be banned, and there's no excuse for that. However, they also banned people not involved with the situation, and they removed an entire city. I mean, they didn't take out the buildings, but they destroyed a few of the primary buildings required for that city. They labeled it not disgusting, but childish, in response to the bannings and everything. So I questioned their banning, and they threatened to ban me just for questioning their banning. But that's just my personal opinion and what I found on the server. However, as far as I understand, the main server Basilisk also has this problem. A lot of these servers are going to have this problem because the people running it are people. And if you take it personally to them, they're going to respond in kind. That's something to remember. That's not how it should be handled. And I find a problem with it to handle it on such a low level, to go down to these players' levels who are causing the trouble and deal with it exactly like they would deal with it. That's unprofessional. So keep that in mind on this server. This server is fantastic though. The actual server stability, perfect. I mean, it couldn't be better. If it goes down, you get rewarded for your time lost. There's tons of content. They're constantly including content that was either never in the game, or it was in the game but it was never working. They're constantly fixing things. It's getting better and better. The community is really good. There are a few bad eggs here and there. However, it's a really solid community that wants to help each other out, because it is a small community. I mean, 3,000 to 5,000 people, that's not a lot when it comes to emulators, but it is growing. The player versus player, as far as I've seen, it's constant. It's day to day. There's going to be PvP. There was a problem for a little bit. There was instant travel terminals in the dev city, the developer city, where Heat and the rest of the moderators do their day-to-day stuff. And these instant terminals would take you to whatever planet you wanted instantaneously, whether you were in combat or not. Everyone decided that this would be the place to PvP at. Well, the problem with that is the moment you get low health, boop, off. You're off to whatever planet you want, if you're quick enough. So it was ruining PvP. And Heat and the rest recognized this. They removed it. There's now one terminal to get out, in and out, and you can't use it in combat, so that's fixed. It's not a problem anymore. But now the PvP it's great as far as I understand it. Tons of people trying to fight every day, 20 people at a time on each side, 15 people at a time on each side. It's not going to be the 100 on 100 that I remember, but it is definitely a start. It is great. As far as the future of the server, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to get more followers, and I think it's going to be really stable, and the content's going to be good. And as long as the dev team and the moderators adopt a more professional attitude with the way they handle upstarts and people ruining the game for everyone else, I think this is the best server you could probably hope for Star Wars Galaxies, and you should probably play on this one as opposed to anything else. So that's it for me. My name is Kane, and have a good day.